Joining us right now is John Schumann from NBA.com. John, we appreciate your time. Let's start locally here. The reputation of the Kings throughout the game right now, how would you describe it, John?
That's a good question. Obviously, how successful they've been is a big surprise for sure. But I don't think there's any sort of negativity to it. I think people understand now at this point in the season that they are legit. They are a legit, top 4 seed in the West, and it looks like they could finish. They have a good shot at finishing second. And I think you'll see questions about how successful they can be in the playoffs given the weakness of their defense. But I don't think there's any questions that they're a legit, really good team and that their offense is just absolutely fantastic.
How far does a nationally televised game go in furthering what you're saying about the Kings being legit and people believing that around the NBA world?
Oh, I don't know. I can only speak for myself, and I don't think it matters much to me. I watch them whether they're on national TV or not. Sure. So yeah, I think sure it could be good for casual fans, maybe even in Sacramento, just to see that their team is on national TV and doing well, to rile up that fan base a little bit. But I think at this point, fans in Northern California know how good this team is, and I'm sure they're given the success of the season that they're behind them as much as they've been in the last 15 years, probably.
John Schumann is with us here, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. John, you said you've watched enough of this team. How dangerous do you think the King could be in the postseason?
Well, I think it's as much about them as it is like how wide open the Western Conference is right now.
Yep.
Really, when you think about it, there are 2 teams that have played well all season and are probably feeling pretty good about themselves right now, and that's Denver and Sacramento. And beyond that, you have Memphis dealing with issues. You have Phoenix, worrying about Kevin Durant. You have the Warriors who've been, terrible on the road. You have the Clippers who haven't found any consistency, even with their stars healthy at this point. And then beyond that, you have teams that are in the play-in and just trying to, stay there, keep their heads above water. So I think it's as much about the Kings and their success and as it is about just how wide open the West is and how there's no team right now other than Sacramento and Denver that can go into the postseason feeling particularly strong about their chances.
Along with the Suns, of course, with Kevin Durant healthy, and that's up in the air now after what happened last night. But along with the Suns, the team below the Kings in the standings that I hear Kings fans more often than any other go, they could be a problem. They could be dangerous. And my co-host says it from time to time, is the Warriors. Do you think they figured this thing out, get it back on track, and are back to being that dangerous defending champion team come playoff time?
If I was an upper seed, I wouldn't want to face them in the first round, but I definitely don't think they're as nearly as good as they were last season. I think they lost some key pieces, and I think primarily they've lost the hunger that they had last season, trying to get back to the finals after, a few down years. And so now they've got the sort of, I don't know how to say it, but they've lost, and Steve Kerr has admitted this, that they're not as hungry as they were a year ago, and they just haven't been able to flip the switch. You'd think, coming back, with Steph Curry coming back this past week, and they're, finally sort of whole. They're missing Andrew Wiggins still, and that's a key loss. But you'd think they'd be able to sort of turn it on. And they just haven't. It's a home road thing, but in general, it's just that their defense is not as good. They're not as sharp on that end of the floor, and they're just not as good a basketball team as they were last year.
John Schumann is with us here. Of course, he's on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline from NBA.com. John, you touched on it with Phoenix a little bit there. KD's injury last night in the layup line, and now Jonathan Kuminga hurt himself in the layup line tonight. Very strange. But how difficult would it be for Phoenix, do you think, to reset with KD if he's out for an extended period of time?
the one good thing about Kevin Durant is that even when he's out for a while, when he comes back, he's just Kevin Durant again. There's like hardly ever any sort of rust showing, and we've seen it multiple times in these last few years, where he's had an extended absence, 3 or 4 weeks, and then come back and looks the same. And so that's one good thing about Phoenix, and it's definitely not a team I'd want to face if all three of those guys are healthy. Along with DeAndre Ayton, they went 3-0 with Durant. They looked absolutely dominant offensively in the last 2 of those games. They're near impossible to guard when you've got Booker and Durant on the floor together. So yeah, I think if the Durant injury isn't too bad, and if he's back by the first round of the playoffs, then they're still in pretty good shape. And again, given how open the West is, they probably have as good a chance as anybody.
While we're on the subject of getting MVPs back from injury, if LeBron gets back and this Lakers team can stay in the play-in picture, are they a problem for the West?
I don't think so. I think they could probably win a playoff game or 2, but I don't think they're a threat to any team that's going to finish in the top 2 or 3 of the West, just because, even if you look at, when they've had LeBron James and Anthony Davis together, they still have a losing record in those games. They did add some good pieces, or some better pieces, I should say, at the deadline. And so they have a little bit better of a supporting cast. But, by the time they get to the end of the season, their LeBron and Anthony Davis and their added pieces will have barely played together. And I think that's an issue. And I just don't think that they have, as a whole, a good a team as Denver, as Sacramento, as Memphis, as Phoenix, as the Clippers even. So I think, they'll be interested. It'd be fun to see them in a play-in tournament with LeBron healthy, with Anthony Davis healthy, with their new supporting cast. I just don't think that they're a threat to win a series.
John, last one for you from me. I want to switch to the Eastern Conference here. How much separation do you believe there is between the top 3 teams in the East?
Just between those 3 individually, or between those 3 and
those 3, those 3 individually, like against each other? How much separation from Milwaukee down to Philly?
I don't think there's much. And if you look at games played between the top 5 teams in the West or in the East, it's basically even. No team has been particularly dominant against the rest of the group. I do think, obviously Milwaukee hasn't been 100% for most of the season. That, Chris Middleton was out for a while, and then he was coming off the bench. And so I think they are probably the favorite, but we still haven't seen, them at full strength. They still have offensive issues. Even when they won the championship, they had some ugly games along the way. And so I think they can be beaten. And I think Philadelphia can be a team that beats one of the other 2. So I think I think it's pretty tight, and I can't wait for the Eastern Conference playoffs. I think if you get a 4 or 5 series with Cleveland and New York, and then you get a conference semis with either of those teams, 2 teams plus Philly, Boston, and Milwaukee, you're going to have a 4 really competitive series in the East.
John, we appreciate the time. Great job. Hopefully we get to do this again soon.